Wow. I feel like there's been this theme, and the festival just started yesterday. But it really is about these people who we know so little about, and we should know so much more about them. And yesterday we did a film about Clyde Best and Addie Coker, who played for West Ham, reintegrated the sport of soccer in England. And then we had another film that preceded that, Bill Patterson's story, who was a huge mentor to Bill Russell and all these other people. And now we have this, Chester. And we have a film for senior lunch that's happening on the 23rd. So many of them. It gives me goosebumps because I think this is what we should be doing, right? This is the work, this is the documentary work. I feel like it's really important, and I know it's really difficult also to bring a feature documentary to this space. So I just want to give another round of applause. We have about 20 or so minutes, 23 minutes or so for us to talk, and then another maybe 10 or so to throw it out to the audience. So, Laurie, I'm going to start with you. So, what inspired you to tell this story? I think really that's sort of a broad question, but it takes a lot to get to this place and then to this space where you finish this. And I just would love for you to share that story about how you got it.
Well, I just want to say thank you to Lisa and her beautiful team for all that they're doing, for allowing us to have this opportunity. Right? So thank you, Lisa. This story started when I wrote a children's book about Dr. Chester Pierce. It's called Follow Chester. And I had a teacher to tell me that she's used the book and it's helped in so many ways in Maine, of all places, that it's made a difference, and how they've used that book and they've been able to have difficult conversations to move things forward. So things can happen with children's books. You sometimes think, oh, that's a small, petty thing, but that's a big deal. Because I write children's books, and I know it takes a lot, and that's what inspired this story. Follow Chester, a children's book, inspired this story, so that you can learn about him as adults. All right? And so this is important because from children, we can learn so much. And I learned so much from children, just going and sharing the story, and I would have adults to tell me, why isn't there more information about him? And that's how this all came about. I wanted to make sure that this story was told, and to have a great team, and have people like Dr. Henderson, who knew him personally. I just felt like there's so much here, let's do this. And that's how it all got started.
This is a gentleman, and Gloria for you too as well. This is a gentleman who had so much to offer, and he did so much, right? And he had so much humanity. How do you figure out how to capture that in this narrative, and to make sure that you are encompassing so many things that he did in his life?
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Gloria, as well. Well, you have to craft a narrative, first of all, and there were so many things in his life that were notable. It was just thing after thing after thing that we learned about that we actually couldn't include all of it. I wish that we could, but at the end of the day, we have about 90 minutes, about 60 to 90 minutes. And so what we did is we crafted a narrative that wasn't just what we call the glorified resume. It was more of the ups and downs of his life intellectually, but also represented him as a family man as well. We wanted the film to have heart as well. So I wish that we could have included more, but at the end of the day, it's a 90-minute product. You can only include so much. So what we had to do was choose a thread, stick with the thread, and then really have it connect at the end of the movie. Did you want to add anything?
I just want to say, Eric is the editor. He was also the writer, co-producer, and we have Zara, who's in the audience. Zara, you can stand up. She's our co-producer as well. So we have a strong team. We have team members as far as Canada. If you all can stand up. We have from Canada, New York, Maine, you have a really strong team, and I'm so grateful that, we're all here to say this was just not one person doing this, but several. And we, again, just want you to know that it wasn't, oh, they just did this little thing. No, it was a big deal, 7 years. It took a lot of time. And I do feel that you all really received everything that we tried to capture, and I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
And so you have a question for, okay. Panelists,
I just wanted to add on to, it was the first time that our family, I'm one of his granddaughters, and it was the first time that we got a chance to see this film, and I have to say that I thought you all did such a beautiful, beautiful job. Thank you so much. And you were able to hit so many wonderful points that I didn't necessarily know a lot of the details about, and at the same time include his humanity and him as a person. I think that's just as important as the other aspects of his legacy as a black man in this country. So I'm really so grateful for it. Thank you so much for your beautiful work.
Wow, this is the first time you're seeing this? Oh my gosh, that is so beautiful. That is so amazing. Dr. Henderson, you were a mentee of Dr. Pierce. I can't even imagine being in his presence. I mean, this is a man who invented microaggressions that we live with every single day. Can you just talk about how his work, it's global, right? I mean, and we're talking, you saw this, it's global, and I would love for you to just talk about that, like being part of his world and being inspired and taught by this man.
Thank you. First of all, say that because of Chet's style, you would never know he's done all these things. So I met him in 1989, first meeting with him. He's going to be my supervisor. We had a conversation. He's a nice gentleman, And then over the years, like every time we meet, I get another story. Oh, you have a mom named after you. Okay, I never heard. Okay, that's normal, right? But Chet's impact, like I'll talk about the global, because he was a global man, and he was so good at just giving just one piece of advice that literally changed your trajectory. And he did that for me like 3 or 4 times. Literally changed. Like one of the things was that I took over his job at MIT, and I was struggling because I was at Mass General, and it was a very white population, and then I was at MIT, and it was a very diverse population, international. And I was struggling to take care of patients. I didn't understand why. And I told him this story, and he kind of laughed at me and says, "Okay, you have to get an international experience. You got to broaden your experience in a whole different levels." And that led me to start doing global. And honestly, his legacy from the work that he did, and he held that meeting in 2002, the African diaspora. I was on a plane in 2015, going to South Africa, and I got the call that he had just passed. And it was, obviously good. But in South Africa, I remember that we had that meeting in 2002, and we had not followed up with it. And so that in 2015, I said, with my colleagues, from all over Africa, I said, we need to do this. And that led to an organization now called the African Global Mental Health Institute, which will hold our 9th meeting in Kenya. Now about 30 countries participating, and the amazing work around improving clinical care and training and research and education, policy and advocacy, all built on Dr. Chester Pierce. And the quality that we've seen over these years, like I've just reviewed the submissions for people to present, and I just can't believe the quality. It's just amazing. So Dr. Pierce in his way of impacting on so many people, and in such a gentle way, he's helped millions and millions and maybe billions.
That is so incredible, and just to think about that, there was one quote that he said in the movie that I'm not a psychiatrist. He always wanted to be known as a black psychiatrist, and all of you sort of talk a little bit about that. You know, I think that's it's interesting because black actors don't necessarily want to be known as black actors. They want to be known as actors, right? They don't want to be known as black directors. They want to be known as being directors. They can do anything. But he was really specific about that. And so, Ashley, I'd love for you to talk about that too, because he was your granddad. But that was important to him.
Well, I believe that he, and maybe I am getting the wrong impression about this, because he's not here to speak for himself, and I wish he would be to answer that question himself, but I would think that so much of his work had to do with uplifting the black community and about pushing the ball forward so that black actresses could say, I am now going to be seen as an actress. But I think it has to start first with someone standing up and saying, I am here, and I am black, and I'm proud, and we can do everything that anyone else can do, kind of thing. So I think that starts from, from being proudly that beacon in the darkness that says I might be the only person on this football team, but I'm proudly the black person on this football team representing that. And I think it's such an honor to be able to be that beacon. And as he said, I love the quote that you had in the movie about how he had been gifted by so many different people to be able to be in the positions that he was in, and to have the honor to be able to be that beacon. And so I think that comes with the pride of being able to say, I'm proud to be a black psychiatrist.
Just a quick comment, because I had that discussion with him. And one of his first pieces of advice was that, you need to become good at something. You need to become an expert, but you need to position yourself as a black psychiatrist that anyone in the world would want to come see you, not just black people. He said, I know you're dedicated to take care of black people, but your survival will require you to be able to take care of anyone. And so you need to develop that expertise that anyone, no matter what their background, what they look like, will want, and you want to seek you out for that expertise.
I just want to add that his parents, I think they were, Hattie and Samuel, they were strong people. And I think that, especially his mom being such an advocate for the community, and his dad, I just felt like they just raised him up like that, just to be proud of who you are. And I think that's important, that we should all stand in that, as Ashley said. Just, sometimes you may be the only one, but guess what? I'm the only one. I want to let you know I'm here, and I'm proud about that. And that's a wonderful thing. And, it says a lot about his confidence as well.
He was obviously a trailblazer, and I think we don't. We see things like Sesame Street, and we're like, oh yeah, Sesame Street. I had no idea that was like based on research. But it makes total sense. And then here's this man at the forefront of that. It's important to us, but it's important, I think, to the younger generations to understand who this man was and who people like him were. And so I'm curious as to, this is a film, this is great, it's 90 minutes, but what is your thought process around making sure that this gets into schools, that the next generation sees this, that the next generation understands that they too can be Dr. Chesterfield's and break all these boundaries and these barriers? Because I feel like we're living in a time where there's so much erasure of our culture, so much erasure of BIPOC folks, that all of these movies need to be seen by the younger generation so they understand that these are the shoulders they stand on.
Lisa, I'll be honest with you, it's not an easy process. It's gonna be a long process, but I am determined to make sure that this gets as high a platform as possible so that children especially, because it started from a children's book, that children especially are inspired by Dr. Pierce's story. We wanted to make sure that not only is this story, because as Eric said, it's really, he did so many amazing things that it's really hard not to make it a glorified resume, because this guy dropped the mic. Come on, he was all over the place, right? He was on Earth, he was in the sky, he was on, he was everywhere. And he was on Sesame Street. I mean, he did so many things in so many different spaces and places. And so all this is wonderful, but it's like, okay, how do we capture this and make sure that it can, again, put it on the highest platform? So I give you the ball on this, if you can help us as far as what your charge, your action could be. Please let people know about this documentary. Please go and say, this is something that we want to see on television. This is something we want to share. And that's how it happens. It happens because of you. I can do it, I'm trying, but I really need each of you to help as well, to share this with others and tell them about the documentary, because we are definitely open to sharing and allowing this to be distributed in ways that we can't do. And we tried to, one thing I want to mention is that we really wanted to make sure that in producing this documentary, creating this documentary, that it had different layers. It has the graphics, it has the voiceover, it has someone that's doing the narration, which is Zan. Zan, if you could stand up so we can give you some love. We wanted to make sure we had all kind of voices, not just the academic voice, but we wanted to have all kind of voices so that it can compel the person to want to watch it. And I'm admiring each of you for saying thank you for sitting through this, because I know it's a lot. It was a lot to see, but yet you sat through it. And so we try to make the layers there. The music, Riard Huggins, who's this phenomenal composer he's in LA, a young man who did all the music for this. This was composed, all of this, he did all the music. And so, those are the kind of things that kids can not only just see and know about Dr. Pierce, but the people who created it were also creatives, as creative people in creating this. So, please help us do all that you can in getting the word out about this, because we really do want to make sure that we're not the only ones seeing this, because I'm sure each of you will agree, others need to see this as well, in all honesty, really, and know about this thing, to be inspired by this story.
There's also a really wonderful children's book called Follow Chester, which can also be in schools as well.
I think it's true, it takes a village. You can't make a film by yourself, you can't distribute it, you need everybody here. And maybe it's not necessarily seeing, let's take this 90-minute movie and let's go on the road, because that is part of it. You need to do the festival circuit. But it's just that everyone here in this room can say, do you know the story about Chester Pierce? Let me tell you. And here's some talking points about him, so that people can go out there and do that research. I just wanted to quickly ask you, Eric, you sort of live with this material as an editor, right? And I'm wondering if there was any piece of this puzzle of this film that sort of stuck with you as you're editing this piece and putting it together. Because as Gloria was saying, there were layers and layers, and we saw those layers. It was beautiful to be able to see all those different layers and all those different pieces of who this man actually was. But as an editor, you have all that material that I'm sure you and Gloria are pouring over to make these decisions. But was there anything that particularly stuck with you?
Thank you. Yes. We've lived with material for a long time, and the particular challenge was, intellectually, we felt like we had a really good sense of his words, what he wrote about, and his career in general, but really a revelation came when Wonderful Family, who's here, provided these amazing stills and these absolutely amazing kind of humanizing stills that reminded me of my family as well, and especially the scene where he is aging, and you talked about Granddad having his own chair and drinking chocolate milk with them. It reminded me of my grandfather, and it reminded me of my father as well, teaching to play chess, and it really it brought the story home in a way that I felt would resonate with audiences. And so I really thank you all for sharing that. It really added just such a wonderful dimension to the movie that it really reminded me of my family.
I just want to echo with what Eric just said. If we can give a round of applause and a standing ovation to the Pierce family for allowing us to love on their loved one. Because you all let us in. You could have kept that door open. You could have kept it closed. So thank you for letting us in to share this beautiful story, to inspire us to be better, our best. So thank you for that. Thank you.
Put out to the audience, but I do, we don't have that much time, but I do want to hear from the Pierce family a little bit about how this impacted, and if this is the first time seeing it, and how you felt about it.
I don't know who wants to answer that first, but I will say that it's very much his legacy to be quiet. And I think what's interesting, not me! But it's interesting what you were saying about what can we do to get this legacy out, and I think something that is exciting about, for me, being so honored to be a part of his legacy is that I do believe his ideas and his thoughts and his heart and the words that he was able to articulate in getting all that heart out there and all that stuff, that seems to have a life of its own. And even though he was such a humble and a guy who wasn't treating his own horn, I think that if he had wanted to, I think he could have been louder about himself and his work and his mountain and everything. And I think one of the reasons why it maybe hasn't been so clear is because he wasn't like that. And I think my family is so overwhelmed and honored to have this happen that it's difficult maybe to articulate how much this means to us and how much it means to me, I can say. But I do believe that he seemed to be, from my perspective, a man who allowed the work to speak for itself. And I think that the work that you guys have done, the beautiful work that you guys have done, will have a life of its own, I'm sure of it, because I do believe that his legacy speaks for itself.
I'm so glad that Mad Magazine got in there.
Mad Magazine, he's saying he'd be really happy that Mad Magazine got in there. It's true though, you have a generation like his. My grandfather was the same, and my grandparents never really talked. They did so many amazing things, but they never really talked about it. So I want to throw it out to the audience real quick, because we have about 5 minutes or so to hear. Oh, okay.
So, I was sitting here, and I don't want to grab anything. First of all, you did an amazing job. I was a black student leader at Harvard in 1969, and I got kind of far out on the limb, and I was being investigated by the House on Un-American Activities Commission, and others were coming after me.
We got really far out.
Yeah. And this tall guy shows up, and I had heard something about him, and he shows up and he says, "I'd like to help you if you want me to." And he kind of turned me around, and I saved my life. And I was saying to my wife, I wonder how Gloria is going to do all this thing. So we started meeting, and I would say from 1969 up until about, as he started to get sick, we would meet at least once or twice a year. I was also a part of the special receivership team at South Boston High School. And Chet called me and he said, "You remember those conversations we had about extreme environments?" He said, "You're in one. You need my help." And again, he kept me from going off the deep end. And he would tell me these stories, and I started laughing. I don't know if the gentleman here, but we met for lunch one time in Harvard Square, and then I'll stop. And he told me the story about the elephant. And when it started coming up in the booth, and my wife was grabbing me, Lynette was saying, "Stop laughing."
Hi, everyone. My name is Michiko Andrade. I'm a public health consultant. I worked for the Department of Public Health for 2 decades. And so during that time, I branched off and started teaching for Executive Office of Health and Human Services, where we developed this curriculum. And then I remember us sitting around and we said, let's bring in something about microaggressions. And so we brought him in and we would show a picture of him. We taught hundreds of people in state government, for the Department of Public Health, Department of Mental Health, and some vendor programs. But here's the thing, is that we would show his picture, we would say his name, and we would heavily weigh on microaggressions. But I am awestruck tonight. This was so educational to me and so layered that I don't even think I realized whose picture we had up in front of hundreds of state employees. And I'm just like so inspired. And I just want to encourage the family that it's the children's book, it's the work that was put into this, but it's also in really discreet places like where I was in state government, that we put his face up, his name, and ascribe the term microaggressions. Today, as a public health writer, I use that term. I've experienced microaggressive behavior as a woman of color. But this man it's a layered foundation. It's so inspiring, and it was not a waste of time to come out tonight. And I just want to say that. Hundreds of state employees, and we have seen this face in our
Thank you so much. I'm Carol Copeland Thomas, a very proud member of Bethel A&E Church. And our church members are here. The senior pastor is here, Reverend Ray Hammond. And I just can't tell you how thrilled I am that you had the courage and the guts and the fortitude to create this masterpiece. I'm in the diversity space, so you know how we're heavily targeted now. They want erasure, which is completely absurd, but it is because of the power and the influence of Dr. Pierce and his family that they provide a threat for those who are in fear. So I want to do whatever I can to help and support you and the family to move this forward, because it must be seen by everybody. My granddaughter just graduated from high school. She's headed to Spelman. I want her classmates, I want my other granddaughter, I want everybody to know who this great man was. And I thank Pastor Hammond for letting us know about this film today. So thank you very much.
Last question.
So, I'm Dr. Keith Churchwell, and my real claim to fame is that I'm the brother-in-law of Gloria Churchwell. This is a remarkable film. I got a couple of thoughts coming to mind. Number one, the first third could easily be a feature film. That would be incredibly exciting and remarkable in terms of stories. But I'm just curious, when you talk to those who actually were invested with him and mentored by him, was there a discussion about the degree of genius and the why behind the genius? I mean, he's defined easily as a polygon. Someone who actually did multiple things in his life that actually, one could say, were not connected, but were truly connected. And the talent to do that, the investment that's necessary, and the degree of capability to actually move that forward is just remarkable. And I'm just curious that in your conversations with those who actually knew him well, was that ever part of the discussion in terms of how one defines genius and how his genius was actually brought forward? And did he ever discuss that with those that actually he mentored actually completed the same?
Dr. Henderson.
You have to answer in 30 seconds.
Well, Chuck would never say that what he was doing and has done was the work of a genius. Like it was never part of who he was. But he would say how his methods of arriving at these, and amazing revelations. And part of it was that instead of looking just at one thing one way, he brought in different points of view, different fields to examine the same problem, to better understand and so on. But honestly, he would, like, we all knew Chet was a genius. And we tiptoed around it because we never would allow ourselves to say it in front of him. He wouldn't like it.
He was very humble. And I know we gotta go, Lisa, but I wanted the young Chet, if you could stand up, young Chet, so we can give you some love. Yeah.